Welcome to the Adopt Well podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Amy Bagwell.
And I'm Macie Perreault. Together, we'll discuss helpful topics for anyone touched by adoption.
In today's episode, we have such a special guest joining us today. We are really in the seat of honor today. We have such a wise woman, a mom of four, and the founder of none other than, drum roll please, Adopt Well. So, Macie Perreault. No, seriously though, guys, a few weeks ago, we chatted with so many of you on our Instagram platform at Adopt Well, just about introducing yourself, sharing your story, and trying to make this online community, so to speak, really feel like more of a community where we kind of get to know one another and find out some common bonds and just connect on more than just liking a post here and there kind of relationship. So the more Macie and I talked about it and how much we enjoyed it, we realized that we have never really shared our story with so many of you. So Macie's going to go first, and she's going to just share some of her story. So she'll carry the bulk of conversation today. I'll help it move along a little bit and probably ask a few prodding questions here and there. But all in all, today's episode is really Macie's story. So Macie, you take it away. Tell us who you are and how you got to today.
Alrighty, definitely. So my name is Macie, obviously, and I am 29 years old. I live just north of Charlotte, North Carolina, with my husband of almost 9 years, Greg, and our 4 kids, which is a bit of a spoiler for this story, but it's okay. But yes, and I am very thankful I'm able to stay at home with them. So that's such a blessing, and honestly has been my lifelong dream to just have a house full of kiddos. So I'm living it.
Yeah.
Living the dream.
So like 9 years ago when you and Greg were just tiny babies getting married.
Exactly. Back when we were toddlers.
What was the vision of your family like? Did you always think you would have a big family, or you weren't sure? What was that plan?
Yeah, so that was actually something that bonded us when we started dating because, obviously you want to have a similar plan to the person who you plan to marry.
Yes.
You hope. And I, like I said, have always known that I wanted to have a big family. And when I met Greg, he was the same way. And we just both had a similar vision that we wanted to have a lot of kids, hopefully have them close together in age, which is a very interesting part of my story.
Special, yes.
Very interesting. But yeah, so that was something that was really important to us. So that's really what we wanted.
So at that point, where did you begin?
Yeah. So when we first began, we were married for 2 years. And then we were like, well, we need to get the show on the road because if we're going to have like 10 kids, no, I'm just kidding. But for real, we were like, if we're going to have like 5, 6, however many kids we end up being blessed with, then we better, get started here. So after a couple of years of marriage, we started trying to get pregnant, and just 7 months later, got pregnant with our first son. I had a very normal pregnancy, normal delivery, and everything was great, honestly. And so after that, when our first son's name is Porter, so when Porter turned 8 months old, I was just like, you know what? Maybe we should start trying for number 2, because at that point, I was like, well, if we want all of our kids to be really close together in age, which LOL, I learned very quickly that not everyone can actually control the age gap of their children.
Yeah. You don't say.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I used to get so many comments, and honestly, I still do. And it's just that people don't know what they don't know. But even just today, actually, I was with someone and she was talking about how they timed their kids so that they were all 18 months apart because that is just the perfect age. And I was just like, in my mind, like, that's so nice that you were able to do that. I tried. No, I didn't say anything. But it's just like, clearly that's not something that everyone can plan for.
Right.
Which I learned. So anyway, honestly, the first couple of months of getting negative pregnancy tests, I was relieved because I had a baby,
right?
A literal 8-month-old baby. And I was like, oh, okay, another month of just me and you before I start having morning sickness again and all of that. But then time kind of went on and, a few months passed and then his first birthday passed and then more months passed and 6 months passed and that turned into a year. And it was at the year mark when I was like, oh, I did not see this coming.
Yeah.
Wait, what? And up until then, it got harder with every passing month taking negative tests, knowing my family might look a little bit different than I planned on, but still also knowing we had a lot of time. But with each month that passed, it got harder and harder. And at the 12-month mark when I took that negative test was the first time that I let myself cry.
Wow.
I think I was kind of in denial
Yeah.
because
I get that. I do.
everyone
Yeah.
says, yeah, and even professionals say like, up to 12 months is considered normal
Right. Yeah.
for trying to conceive. So when I hit that 12-month mark, I was like, oh, this is
Honestly, for those of you that don't know, I have infertility as well. And I remember specifically when it hit a year, I thought, wait, there's like a problem. Like, this is a problem. And it really
right.
wasn't until then that, after probably 6 months, I thought, well, it's kind of weird, but no big deal. But when it hit a year, I thought, wait, is something wrong? I felt the exact same way. I think in our minds, it's like you break through some kind of strange barrier. I don't know, but I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
So at that point, after you hit the 12-month mark, was adoption on your mind, or even before the 12-month mark? Had you guys discussed adopting, or you kind of weren't really sure where you're at with that? How does adoption play a part in that wait time?
Yeah, so actually it's really interesting because adoption was not something that we had ever talked about as a way to grow our family. And I feel like it's kind of 50-50 where you have people like that who maybe never really planned on it. And then you have the other people who are like, oh, I've always known I wanted to grow my family
Yeah.
through adoption. And that's always been, a lot of people, similarly to what I was saying with having a big family, I have a lot of friends who were like, oh, yeah, when my husband and I met and I found out he wanted to adopt as well, I just knew he was the one,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard that for sure.
Yeah, and that just wasn't our story. I couldn't even tell you why, honestly, besides we had never been directly impacted by anyone who had grown their family that way. And so we just thought we were going to have a bunch of biological kids and didn't think much else about it. And even at that 12-month mark of trying, adoption still seriously did not even cross my mind.
Really?
I couldn't tell you why.
Yeah.
It's so odd looking back now, but didn't even cross my mind.
Wow. So how long did your infertility continue after that?
Yeah, so after that, I went through another full year of negative tests, and man, it was so hard. There were, the high moments where I was like full of faith and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
gonna be fine, and then really low lows where I battled a lot of sadness, a lot of confusion, and jealousy and bitterness, and you know what it's like when you're going through infertility or secondary infertility and you're going to baby showers and you're putting on your brave face and you truly are celebrating with your friends and you're genuinely happy for them. But it's like this constant reminder of what you're struggling with, too. It's the
Right.
most bizarre feeling. And I went through a lot of cycles, too, I think, of almost shaming myself because number one, going to baby showers and stuff like that, it's like, why am I being so selfish? This is not about me. I need to just rejoice with them for this gift of life that they're getting, just like I know they'll rejoice with me when it's my time.
Yeah.
So I
The
was
pep
kind of
talk.
hard on
Right.
myself. Yeah, which to a point that is
Right.
true.
Right.
And then secondary infertility also holds a lot of complex feelings because it's really, really hard. But then at the same time, you're like, oh, I need to seriously get it together because I already have a child
Right.
and I need to just be thankful that I even have one,
Yeah.
And so it's this constant kind of battle and back and forth. But I tried really hard to stay positive, and I had kind of been in circles where like that was what was taught was just kind of have faith and be positive and talk about what you want and expect it to happen and don't have any doubt. And so I had a really hard time admitting how hard it was to
Yeah.
those around me and even to myself.
Right.
And especially for me, I'm a Christian, and so through most of this time, I was harboring a lot of bitterness and anger towards God. I may not have known that, and I did not necessarily tell him that.
Sure.
But how funny, like he obviously knows what's
Right.
inside of our hearts.
Yeah.
But it was around that 18-month mark of trying when I felt like, okay, if I really believe that God is my father, like I would want, if we were, how do I say this? We're our children's parents, and we want them to come to us with everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah.
everything in their heart, so we can help them sort through it. And so I really felt like the Lord was just convicting me, like, I'm your father. And, spoiler alert, I already know all those ugly thoughts you have in there.
Yeah.
So you
Just
should
let 'em
really just
out.
bring them to
Right.
me. Yeah. And so I just one day got out my journal and I just got really honest with God with how I was feeling. And I just said things like, you could fix this right now. And you could give me the desires of my heart right now. And I would just ask him questions like, why are you watching me suffer? Why are you withholding my dream from me? I mean, I truly felt like the dream to have a big family, Greg and I both felt like that was a God-given desire. And so to have this desire that we were like, we really feel like this is, a righteous desire. So why are you not fulfilling it,
Yeah.
God? It just felt so unfair. But I had to just come to a place where I fully surrendered my desire of having a large family. And for the 6 months or so after that, I had total peace as a mom of one. It was like once I got all of those feelings out, he was able to kind of work on my heart and just, lovingly get me to a place where I was like, I need to just be content in this season. And I need to lay down my desire of having a big family and just let having one child be more than enough. I
Yeah.
had really made having a big family and even being pregnant into an idol. And I just had to repent for that and let it go. So for about 6 months after that, I just enjoyed being a mom of one, which was
And
awesome.
I'm sure looking back on it, that probably is such a special season with you and Porter. I can't even imagine.
It really was. I mean, I have vivid memories of like sitting on the side of the pool watching him splash
Oh,
around and,
yeah.
it was
So
great.
cute. Okay, so when did you guys decide to start pursuing adoption? Did that like ever just kind of rear its head as a conversation? Did it come out of the middle of nowhere? Tell me about it.
Yeah. So around the 2 month, or I'm sorry, not 2 month, 2 year
Don't be
mark
crazy.
of, I know, for real, of trying to get pregnant. We had kind of let it go there for a little bit. And then I felt like the Lord reignited that desire, but it wasn't like an obsessive desire anymore. It wasn't something that consumed me. It was just like this sort of pure desire. Like I had peace again about maybe it was okay. I had surrendered to that idea of only having one child for a while and been present in the moment. And I felt like he was kind of giving me the okay, like, all right, breathing life back into my dream of having a big family. So I thought, well, faith without works is dead. So why don't I make fertility appointments with fertility doctors?
Light bulb.
And
Yeah.
well, but then no, I have tons of friends who have grown their family that way. And honestly, I think it's absolutely mind blowing and incredible what modern medicine can do. But I just knew in my spirit that God was telling me, this is not how I'm going to grow your family.
Yep.
I just knew it wasn't for us. But I still wanted to do it because sometimes it feels good to feel like you're in control, but
Yes.
joke's on
Yes.
me. That wasn't anyway. So anyway, I made an appointment for us with the fertility specialist. We went in, did all of our paperwork, set up a bunch of tests, and then I went home and told Greg, like, no, we
Can't do
can't do
it.
this.
Yeah.
We can't. This isn't right. I'm trying to force it to happen. And so after that, God really just began to lay the idea of adoption on my heart. And it's a really long story that I don't have time to get into today, but maybe I will sometime. But so I was the first one who thought about adoption. And when I brought it up to Greg, he at first was just kind of surprised because like I said, it was not something we had always planned on doing. And so he was so sweet and very much did not shut me down, but he was like, okay, yeah, we'll have to pray about that. And I was like, yeah, definitely.
Like right now. Start praying right now.
Oh, for real. So I'm behind the scenes and I'm kind of like, okay, Lord, you just work on his heart. So I'm doing my research, I'm getting educated. I'm getting excited about this possibility of growing our family this way. My heart really began to change where it wasn't, just about getting a baby. I say that in quotations,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not, yeah. It became so much more than that. It became about, could we potentially be the family that a mother would choose for her child if she feels like she's not in a position to parent? Maybe we can just step up and be available for if we fit the mold of what someone would need.
Yeah.
And so I was getting really excited about this. And meanwhile, Greg's not saying anything. Not bringing it up. And,
Yeah.
I wasn't thrilled. And so I would bring it up every couple weeks and he's like, yeah, we should definitely keep praying about it. Yeah, we should pray about it. Now, we're not praying together. Like,
Right.
I'm unsure here. I'm unsure, but it's fine. But no, in all honesty, I really felt like God was just like, Macie, I'm going to do this,
Yeah.
Just let me do my thing. And, finally, after a little while, Greg came to me and he was like, hey, I met 5 people this week who were all somehow, he didn't say these words, but I'm going to say it because it's AdoptWell, touched by adoption. But he was like, I was in an elevator for work and I met someone who just randomly told me they were here in town to meet their birth parents. And then I met someone else with their son and they just finished adopting him. And it was just crazy. And so he was like, I think we should go ahead and do this.
Oh, wow. I bet you were just on cloud 9.
Oh my gosh. I was like, finally.
Yeah. Hello, been saying it. Yeah. Let's just talk about for a second how important it is to wait until you and your spouse are on the same page before you begin the process.
Oh my gosh. I know 100%.
We have gotten really a lot of questions about that because it is common that the wife typically feels that way first. Not always, obviously, but I mean, I don't know about you, but that's the majority of stories that I've heard. But man, there's such value in waiting and doing it together. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Off my soapbox.
Definitely. No, it's so, so true. For real.
Okay. So once you decided, yeah, we're ready to adopt, go from there.
Well, then things got a little bit wild. I was at a worship night at my church and, we're starting the process. We're excited. And then here I am in worship. I feel like I'm doing well. And I just feel in my spirit, however you want to say it, God say to me, you don't really know my heart. And I was like, I wonder what that means.
Yeah.
Wait,
what? Yeah.
But I was like, I don't know. And I sort of thought back to all of those things I'd been thinking about, how I felt like God was withholding my dream from me and how he could fix it all in a moment, but he wasn't. Like, he was kind of like this mean God up there, just doling out babies to certain people and withholding them from others. And I just had this very skewed vision of him. And so I was just praying and I was like, well, I want to know your heart, God. Like, show me your heart. Yeah. And he just began giving me things to say. And I just felt like I needed to say them out loud. And so I just began to say, like, you are good. You are so good. You have good plans for me. You give me exactly what I need at the exact moment that I'm ready for it. Just all kinds of things that kind of contradicted the view that I had of him before. Yeah. And I just, again, went back in repentance to him and just repented for basically making him out to be the God that my pain had made him out to be and not who he really was.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I can relate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough when you're in the depths of your own self and your pain and
it really is. Wow.
So after that, it was so funny because after he gave me all these things to say, and I can't remember now because it's been a few years, but I just began saying out loud, and I know this might seem weird to some people, so just, sorry, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
It's your story, girl. It's your story. You got the mic.
Listen, I got the mic right now. But I was just in worship and I just began to say, you are good, 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 good. You are good. You are so good. Like I was just grasping. He has such a good heart for us. He's such a good father. He's full of goodness. And it was crazy because this was like, I don't know, 3 years ago. Just as soon as I stopped saying this song,
You're a good,
King
good
of
father.
My Heart, came on. Yeah. King of My Heart by Bethel, which I had never heard. It was like brand new and it was like, you are good.
Oh, yeah.
Good. And I was like, and I like started weeping. And it was interesting because up until that moment, I had not been able to cry for like 6 months, Amy.
Wow.
And I would tell Greg, I'm going out for a drive tonight and I just need to cry. I need to cry. I would drive around, I'd listen to worship music, I'd beg God, like I have all this pain pent up inside of me that I feel like I'm not dealing with and I just want to get it out. And I could not cry. And I'm a crier.
Yeah. Well,
like you know me, I'm a crier.
If I don't cry for 6 months, that's very normal. I have to tell you.
No, I know. We're so different. If I don't cry for like 6 days, it's like, Macie, is everything okay?
Yeah. Just let it out.
For real. But it was crazy that right after I finally grasped like who he really was, I just had this insane release of tears. And it was like all of those feelings that I had pent up, they weren't even valid.
Yeah.
That's why I couldn't cry over them. It was almost like your anger was placed in all the wrong places, And so I just began weeping and weeping. And then I just saw this picture in my mind as clear as day. And I've never had this happen before, but as clear as day, I saw this picture and it was a baby's face on a 3D ultrasound. And I was shook, obviously.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so I went home and I told Greg, and I was like, I don't know what this means, and I'm not going to try to pretend I do. I don't know if this means that the baby that we're going to adopt is already in its mother's womb. I don't know if this means I'm pregnant. I have no idea. And sure enough, 3 days later, we were getting ready to go over to Greg's parents' house to tell them that we were adopting, which I was so excited to finally let the cat out of the bag. And I was like, just for kicks and giggles, I am going to take a pregnancy test before we go over there. And wouldn't you know, I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh, plot twist.
I mean, for real. And I brought it out. I couldn't even tell him in like a cute way because it was so shocking.
Right. You're stunned.
After years of negative tests and like this whole experience I had in worship just a couple days before, I mean, it was just ridiculous. So I just walked right into my kitchen like heel toe. Like,
he's like, you coming like you're so mad about something.
Right. And I just showed it to him and all we could do was laugh.
Yeah, I could see it.
We were hysterically laughing like, are you freaking kidding me right now? It was just crazy. So anyway, of course, in that very moment, we were like, oh, what do we do now?
Right.
Because we're about to go tell our family we're adopting. Like, what? And we both just were kind of like, well, we're obviously still adopting. Wow. Because at that point, to us, it wasn't like adoption was not just about filling an empty slot in our family. Like it was something we really felt like we wanted to do. And I think that our motives were pure. And so anyway, I'll speed up, but
no, you're good. This is good.
Yeah. So we went and we told our family, hey, we're pregnant. And everybody was so overjoyed because it had been years and they'd all been walking with us. And surprise, we're also adopting.
And they're like, wait, what?
They were like, what? But we were like, I mean, we've seen it on Instagram. We follow people who got pregnant and who adopted and had like a twin type of situation. So this could totally happen.
Wow.
And,
fast forward.
jokes on me. But Yeah. So then, anyway, we should probably speed this up a little bit, but it was actually so devastating. When I was 10 weeks, I actually had a miscarriage.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, and it was awful, Amy. Like, I mean, I think I've been through other miscarriages since, which I'll touch on a little
Yeah.
bit, but there was just something like insanely painful about going through so many years of negative tests
Mhm.
to then get pregnant, and it all felt so perfect
Yeah.
and so miraculous. Like, there was just no way this could fail.
Yeah.
It was so perfect,
Yeah.
you know? And, and so it was awful. It was hard physically, emotionally, spiritually, but I was so glad that God had really helped me lay a firm foundation, and even for our marriage over the past couple years. And we were able to still praise him through it, and he was so good to us and so faithful to just be our comforter and to help us not lose hope. And we went through a season where we really had to grieve.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it
I
didn't
mean,
make sense. Yeah. It was very confusing. Like, I remember Greg and I just laying on our bed and we were both crying, and we just kept saying, and I'm sorry, but I literally still can't go back to that place without crying. But we were just like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, how?
yeah.
How could this all play out so perfectly to end like
Don't
this?
you wish
It
you could
just
go
doesn't.
back to yourself, like, in that moment now?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. In fact, I was just telling a friend the other day, and I don't know if this will encourage someone, but I had forgotten about this, but when I was going through for like a week, I stayed in bed. And going through a miscarriage can be very hard on your body. But it was hard on my body, and it was just sad, and I was just taking time, and I would lay in my bed at night, but I couldn't sleep, and I would just stare at the wall and like silently cry basically.
mm.
And I remember staring at the wall crying, and it was dark, and I just remember thinking, I'm never going to be able to smile again.
Oh,
And I
that is so
seriously meant
heartbreaking.
it.
Oh,
Oh, it was awful, and I remember, like, I'm right back there in the moment, but I truly believed it. I
mm,
was like, "I'm never gonna feel joy again. I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this bed. I don't know how I'm gonna face tomorrow." Literally.
mm.
And I was just telling a friend this the other day who's going through a really hard time right now, like, I've been there, and it was so real.
Yeah.
When I was in it,
Yeah.
it was so real, and, it's like that verse, "Joy comes in the morning," and it is true, and sometimes it takes a while to get to the
Oh,
morning,
yeah.
but if you allow yourself to grieve and to feel the pain, and I mean,
It's so much, but man, I have proclaimed that verse so many times over myself, but it's so true. You've got to go through the night sometimes.
you really do. Another verse that got me through there, and I don't have this in front of me, so I'm probably gonna butcher it, but let's be real, there are like 500 versions of the Bible now, so I'll probably get I'll
Just
probably get
you'll
it
mix
right.
a few together, but you'll get the point across.
Yes. But the verse that says, "You've watched my every toss and turn through the night, and you've caught my every tear in your bottle."
Wow, yeah.
And I was like, even, those were the nights when it had been a month or 2 and I'm still grieving, but the whole rest of the world has moved on.
Mm,
And it's like that really weird, like, you wanna say, like, "Can't you see I'm still hurting?"
right,
But nobody sees it.
right.
But God sees it.
Mm,
He sees your every toss and turn in the night. He
every
catches
tear.
every tear in his bottle. So anyway, that was just so I got so much comfort out of that verse and his presence during that time, which was amazing.
So during
So then
I was gonna say, during that time, were you in the adoption process or you had yet to start that?
So we had yet to start it.
Okay.
We were going through our home study.
Okay.
So we were not active yet.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
And we actually put even that part on hold to grieve
That's
for
so
a few
smart.
months. It really is. I didn't even know at the time how smart it was.
Yeah.
But now I would tell anyone
Yeah,
that because I think it helped us. You have to give yourself time to grieve when you go through hard
right.
things. And you can't try to rush on to the next thing or you won't do it well. And also infertility and adopting, although infertility leads a lot of people to grow their family through adoption, they're two very different journeys and they need to be separated. You and I have talked about this before.
Couldn't agree more.
But yeah. So after that, kind of speed up a little bit. We're almost done here. But in January, we went back to our family. We all cried and we told them that we were ready to start the adoption process again. It was like a very bittersweet moment. And so we did. So we finished up our home study, went active with our agency, and then I ended up getting pregnant again, but went on just a week later to miscarry, actually the weekend of Mother's Day,
Oh, wow.
which was
Yeah.
so sad.
I mean,
yeah.
couldn't be better timing.
Oh, for
Wow.
real. It was so sad. But you know what? Again, we just we tried to just make the best of it. I didn't want to go to church, which this is like a, professional infertility and miscarriage person, I don't know how to say it, tip. But on Mother's Day, if it's just too hard, did you know you actually don't have to go to the church service where they give everybody a flower except for you?
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. You can have church anywhere.
That's so true.
So I decided, you know what? I just lost another baby. I'm really sad. I don't think I can go face the crowd today. And I don't think that God is putting that much pressure on me anyway. So we took our son and we went to the zoo
Good for you.
for the day.
Good for you. Great decision.
You got to do it sometimes.
You do. You really do. God's not mad.
Yeah, exactly. So then after that, the saga literally just continues. And so we're active, we're waiting, whatever. I literally got pregnant again.
How
the next month.
No way. I didn't realize that was that quickly back to back.
It was very quick, and there are so many details I wish I could share. So someday, whenever we all get a cup of coffee, I can share more.
My dream, my actual dream.
Right, for real. So anyway, got pregnant again, and same deal. We were just like, well, at this point, we're just going to see what happens, but we are pursuing domestic infant adoption. And no matter what. So wouldn't you know, I'm like, oh, I'm 10 weeks. Oh, everything's fine. Oh, I'm 12 weeks. Gosh, everything's still fine. Like, I'm still pregnant. This is interesting.
Were you borderline surprised at that point that you had a healthy pregnancy?
Yeah. I mean, you know how faith is, how you're like, you believe it, but you still battled out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's like where I was at.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, yes, for sure. And so at 15 weeks, we found out that it was a girl. So we were like, well, I guess we should announce this because, like, I'm still pregnant. Yeah.
I remember your Instagram post because we had started following each other when we went active at the same time, I think.
Yes.
And I totally remember you were wearing like a pink sweater. Is that right?
Yeah.
I remember. Yep.
You're right. Yeah. So we announced. I have the pictures. Maybe we can somehow link them on this post or whatever, like on Instagram. But yeah, we basically announced and we said, we're pregnant with a little girl named Brighton May and we're still adopting. And so it was really sweet. We did it in 3 pictures. So I had a picture of myself standing next to Porter and it said a miracle beside me. And then I had a picture of myself with the ultrasound and it said a miracle inside me. And then the third one was like a miracle ahead of us or something like that. We're adopting. Yeah.
I remember. That's so funny. Wow.
Yeah. And so at that point, this is when the like sort of ignorant comments came in from a lot of people that were just like, well, now that you're pregnant, you don't have to adopt. Like those types of comments. And I was like, yeah, we don't have to adopt. We get to pursue it.
Yeah.
And if an expectant mom chooses us, then she does.
Right.
We're just, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like that's not what
this had to adopt. Let's be clear.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
And I fully understand that my story is one where adoption was not our original plan, per se, clearly from what I've said. And then we had infertility, and then we decided to pursue adoption. But I want my son to know that, like, I am so thankful for all of those hard years that led us to the decision to grow our family through adoption. You weren't plan B.
Absolutely.
You know, I did not have that mindset of like, oh, I'm pregnant. Now I don't have to adopt.
Right.
It was never like that.
Well, how many people's life goes as planned at age 20 throughout?
Right.
You know, life turns some curves, and you have to make plans accordingly. And that doesn't mean that it's plan B. It just means that you realize that your plans have to change or get to change if you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So,
So spoiler alert, you adopted.
Yeah, so spoiler alert. So basically at that point we had a lot of people that also were telling us like, you're never going to get chosen by an expected mom. You guys are going to lose so much money. You should put your contract on hold so you don't lose time, you know, yada yada. And I was like, guys, it might not make sense. We might not get chosen. We might lose money. I don't care. I'm doing what, you know, we are doing what we feel like we were supposed to do. We're just going to be obedient. We're just going to do it. And what's the worst that happens? We lose some money and we don't get chosen, but at least we do what we felt like we were supposed to do, even when it didn't make sense. And so anyway, long story short, which we won't get into today, but when I was 23 weeks pregnant with Brighton, we got a phone call. We got a situation for a baby boy. He was already born. And we, of course, said, yes, please present us to his mom. And so our agency presented us along with some other families. And then they called back. And I was like, wait, what? And they were like, wait, why are they calling back? Because we had said yes so many times. And every time it was like a few days later, oh, she's chosen someone else.
Right.
She's chosen someone else. So this was not the first time I had laid my yes on the table. In fact, I did not even tell my husband. And this baby was already born. No. Yes. So anyway, so they called back and I was like, oh gosh, they're calling.
Guess I should call Greg.
Yeah. And they were like, hey, she's basically chosen you. She just wants to hear your voice before she makes her final decision.
Oh, wow.
And so I got to talk to his mom on the phone for like 10 or 15 minutes. And it was the most sacred conversation of my life. So many beautiful details that are not mine to share and that I can't wait to share with my son one day.
Yeah.
But long story short, by the end of our phone call, I was like, do you have any questions for me? I mean, anything outside of our profile book. This woman is entrusting her child to me.
Oh, yeah.
And she's trusting that off of like 10 pieces of paper, I am who I say I am. I mean, I cannot imagine.
Yeah, cannot fathom.
Oh, man. So I just wanted her to know, like, nothing is off the table. You can ask me anything. And she was like, I guess my biggest question is just how soon can you get to him?
Oh, wow. You're like, honestly, I'm already here. No.
Right.
I'm
honestly, as soon as I call my husband. No, I'm just kidding. He knew at this point. But for real.
Wow.
So that was at like lunchtime and we hopped in the car, drove to him and had him in our arms by dinner time. So I was 23 weeks pregnant. And
holding a newborn.
Yep.
Oh, I remember that like it was yesterday.
Oh my gosh, same.
Emotions. Oh,
so many feelings. So basically, yes. So we went on then, you know, we named him Judah. His name is a whole nother story that's amazing. We'll have to say for another day. But, yeah. And then 4 months later, I went on to have Brighton. So we have Judah and Bright, and they're 4 months apart.
Sweet
and
babies.
Then after that, there was this one time back before all this when God told me I was healed, and I did not get on birth control after Bright was born. So I guess my faith was not super strong in that word that I was healed. So I got pregnant again. And little JJ joined us. shortly after that.
I don't know if you remember this, but when you told me that you were pregnant with Jay, you said, Amy, I'm just going to say that if God ever tells you that you're healed, you just need to trust him. And I thought, what?
Yes.
And then you said you were pregnant. And I thought, oh my, like all you can do is laugh. Like you understand in the Bible when Sarah just laughed. It's like, oh my gosh, you really, wow, you did it, God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, for real. So when Jay was born, we had Porter was 5, Judah was 20 months, Brighton was 16 months, and Jay was born. See, I can't even get their names straight. So we had a 4 or 5-year-old. Listen, I don't even know.
Wow.
And 3 that were 20 months and under.
So you got a lot of time on your hands. Like, what do you do in your spare time?
Record podcasts with you.
This is a good time to add in. If you've sent us a DM or an email that we haven't responded to,
Literally.
just let this podcast serve as your why. We don't hate you. We just,
literally
slightly busy.
It does keep us up at night.
That's true.
How often are we like, oh, we need to answer all those people? And then I'm like, gotta go, someone's crying. And you're like, me too, give
And then 6 a.m. Sorry, I fell asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
JK, but I'm not. Yep. Okay. Well,
Yep,
that was
for real.
a lot of very rich, very soul-bearing content in like 30 minutes. I don't even know how long. But what else? I mean, anything else that you'd want to add?
I don't really know what I could add.
That's it for now.
Yes, but I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
Well, I know it's probably, I can only imagine how emotional it is to kind of relive some very tough but maybe sweet moments, like sharing those publicly with the world. So on behalf of everyone, I just want to say thank you for doing that, because I have no doubt that there are so many people that are going through something similar that this is really going to encourage. And I know I've heard this, you've heard this, everyone listening has heard this, but hindsight is 20/20. And when you don't understand why you're going through what you're going through, that's okay. That's why they say hindsight's 20/20, because you have to look back on it one day to see clearly what God was doing during that waiting time. So I hope that everyone is encouraged. And again, just thank you, Macie, so much for sharing your story with us. Maybe I'll get brave eventually and put mine down on paper. But until then, hang tight. No, but seriously. So that's it for today. If you guys want to, leave us a helpful review. I know we always say that, but it means so much to us when you leave a review just on the podcast. And if there's any way we can improve, we always want to hear that as well. So thanks for tuning in. We hope you're following along with social media, and we'll be back here in a couple of weeks.